Bosses. They're the ultimate test of your skills, the climax of a narrative arc, and some of everyone's most memorable gaming experiences. But what separates a run-of-the-mill battle from a truly great one? Allow me to explain to you the anatomy of a boss fight. I want you to think of some of your favourite bosses. What makes them so memorable? I'm talking about the likes of GLaDOS, Psycho Mantis, and, well, just about any boss in Furi, which this video will contain extensive spoilers for. You have been warned. I reckon that there's 3 factors that every good boss needs: solid mechanics, a palpable sense of threat, and kick-ass theming. Let's start as we mean to go on by taking a look at the skeleton of our anatomical breakdown, the core mechanics of your boss fight. Now of course, your boss isn't going to be any good if the rest of your game is terrible, but what I'm talking about is the way the boss interacts with you, its weak points, its attacks, and all that good stuff. These crucial ingredients need to be tightly designed and, more importantly, easily understandable in order for a player to really get engaged in the fight. This is a bit hard to explain, so let me show you an example of a boss that is just awful at this stuff. The second boss in Deus Ex Human Revolution. Really, I could have used any boss from this game because they're all totally antithetical to the rest of the game and how it expects you to play. For those not familiar with Deus Ex, it's a game where you play a perpetually grumpy man in a trench coat who likes to snoop around in private property and occasionally punch people. It's an immersive sim, which means that you've got a lot of ways to approach problems. Enemies in particular can be dealt with lethally, non-lethally, or sometimes avoided entirely. Not so with our friend... oh jeez... Yelena Fedora. You have to fight her, and you have to kill her. Not only that, if you're going through a pacifist playthrough, it's even harder, because she doesn't behave like any other enemy in the game. You can't hide from her and her bullshit overpowered charge move, and if you try and do a takedown on her, she'll kill you in one hit. The only way to beat Yelena, if you haven't got any guns, is to run around this server room and pick up all the assault weapons they just happen to have lying around. Then you've got to try and make her slam into a wall, at which point you can pump her full of lead. Alternatively, you can cheese her by spamming the OP Typhoon upgrade, but even then that takes forever. The complete mechanical disconnect from the rest of the game renders this boss fight confusing and frustrating before you've even gotten halfway through. It could have the best writing, it doesn't, and the perfect difficulty curve, nope, and this boss would still suck because it's impossible to engage with. Compare that to our case study game, Furi. All the interactions you have with any of the bosses can be boiled down into 4 main actions: shoot, sword, parry, and dodge. This means that even if you're up against a totally new boss, you can rely on a level mechanical playing field while you get used to the ins and outs of the fight. When a boss does this little white flash, you know that you've got to parry, but the rhythm and patterns are unique to every boss, giving you this awesome feeling of individual mastery of the bosses while also improving your overall skill at the game. Without knowing how parries work, the hand's final last-ditch mega combo would just be unfair, but because Furi makes sure to have solid, simple mechanics, it's an awesome climax to one of the best fights that really tests your knowledge. Same with these circles that are all about testing your ability to time your dodges to skip over projectiles. They appear all over the place, but each boss uses them slightly differently. Which brings me on to the meat, the muscles of any good boss fight. A good sense of threat. Note how I didn't say difficulty. That's because great boss fights aren't always really difficult. The real factor in deciding what makes the difficulty, or lack thereof, compelling is in how it's used to create a narrative. Take most bosses in Dark Souls. They are really tough, as you might have guessed. And on your first attempt to get most of them, you're gonna get creamed. This has the effect of making you feel weak and scared in the face of these titanic one-hit killing machines. However, as you slowly but surely master their usually well-defined mechanics, you can find out how you do that in this video here, you gradually get a shot at beating them until finally you do. Dark Souls has made its name not on hard bosses, but the payoff you get from beating them. The huge adrenaline rush high of laying the smackdown on a boss who's been giving you real trouble is awesome, and it wouldn't be possible if the bosses weren't just the right kind of difficult, intimidating, but surmountable. Games with bosses that feel cheap or unfair, no matter how challenging they might be, don't elicit the same response. To take another example from Dark Souls, the Bed of Chaos. As anyone who's played this far will know, it's essentially random whether the boss will kill you in one hit or not do anything at all. It's a terribly designed fight. Now, compared to against every other boss in the game, it's probably one of the hardest encounters, but once you beat it, there's no feeling of release, no triumphant rush, because neither you nor the boss really earned it. It's just kind of a, oh well, thank God that's over. On the flip side, the first boss in Metal Gear Rising Revengance, some Metal Gear lore nerd will probably know the answer, but this big robot thing seems really threatening, but it's actually kind of a pushover. Your victory over what once appeared to be a challenging fight is an awesome power trip that's only amplified once the boss comes back a little bit later, only for you to beat the tar out of it again. Coming out of taking down Robo-Wolves for good makes you feel unstoppable, like you can take down whatever this game has to throw at you. And then Jetstream Sam shows up. Any other game would have Sam beat you up in a cutscene, but not here. Platinum know that their boss fights have a reputation for being bombastic power trips, and Jetstream Sam's first appearance completely turns this on its head. You have access to the exact same moveset you had fighting the robot, but the fight is much harder this time. Sam will dodge all of your attacks, predict your parries, and just generally whoop your butt. The emotional whiplash of feeling unstoppable to getting totally stomped into the dirt is awesome. This tutorial capstone brilliantly sets up the final fight with Sam as a demonstration of how far you've come. Both the Metal Gear, is it a Metal Gear? I don't know, fight, and Jetstream Sam's first appearance are technically very easy fights to get through, but are used in different ways to convey different extremes of emotion to the player. Let's take these lessons back to Furi, and to maybe the final boss depending on your choices. Obviously she's set up as the biggest challenge to stop you getting out and finally escaping your imprisonment. The fact that she's not only quite easy, but that she stops fighting back and throws your actions in your face makes your victory a hollow, melancholy one.
If your world withers and dies, you are the end. You are a monster! No!
A tone that's only built upon during the credits immediately after, where it's revealed why you were locked up in the first place. Just as difficulty communicates with the player, so can the visual design and theming of any good boss. A game that's literally just come out that does this brilliantly is Iconoclast. Just take a look at this boss room. Look at how there's a near perfect line of symmetry drawn right down the middle. When, shock surprised, you're separated from your teammate and have to fight the boss tag team style, this symmetry informs your decision making. First of all, we know that gears can move things, as we learned in the previous zone, and there's two in this room, so we can guess from there that they'll move the boss along this track from one side of the room to another. Then there's this bolt to spin and this power thing to whack. But hang on, you might be asking, Robin can't get over there to whack the power thing or spin the other gear. All we've got on the right side of the room is Nina, a character we've not had the chance to play as yet. It's reasonable to assume that she can interact with this stuff somehow, but how could Iconoclast teach us that in the middle of a boss fight? Spoilers, it already has. The answer is symmetry. Nearly all of Nina's moves, from her gun to her melee attack, have the exact same effect and controls as Robin's, right down to the ability to spin these gears. By letting the theme of the boss fight inform your play, Iconoclast eliminates the need for a boring tutorial section. That's quite a convoluted example, but this stuff is all over the place if you just know where to look. This cowardly goon hiding under a platform is teaching you how to avoid this helicopter's attack. Your companions ducking and moving teach you how to dodge this ninja's attacks, and this spinny drill robot not only reminds you to spin your own wrench to ride these wires, but also offers a cool in-universe explanation as to why you're fighting it in an otherwise very contrived area. It's not just visual theming that can communicate with players. Sound design and music are just as important. Platinum games, unsurprisingly, are fantastic at this. The best example is in Bayonetta. Most of the boss themes are your classic Dark Soulsian chanting and orchestras, right up until the point where you've nearly won, at which point the music takes a sudden left turn into this awesome poppy remix of Bayonetta's theme to show you not only that you've won, but also that it's time to stop worrying about dodging attacks and actually thinking about what you're doing, and to instead enjoy a classic platinum over-the-top button mashy climax. Woo! Furi does the exact opposite. Once you've got a boss down to their last life, the music will slowly fade out and then back in again with a darker, more intense mix, signalling their last-ditch attempt to kill you before you inevitably take them down. There's nothing fun about these songs, so buckle up for some bullet hell until you can finally dish out the pain. Of course, there's no discounting the appeal of just making a boss you really want to kill. GLaDOS, the malevolent AI in Portal, spends the whole game taunting you, and that makes finally taking her down so satisfying. So, there you have it. 3 fundamental factors that make up a good boss fight. What's that? There's still about 5 minutes left in the video? Well, that's because there's actually a 4th one I didn't tell you about. A twist. The brain of our boss fight. Now, when I say twist, I'm not always talking about stuff like a secret hidden final form. I'm speaking more broadly about bosses that have a conscious awareness of the player in their design. The best possible example of this is in the best boss in Dark Souls, Orville and Smudge. Every boss in Dark Souls sees you fighting one guy, or sometimes a few copies of the same guy. In this one, however, you're introduced to your classic weird looking Dark Souls boss. Yeah, wait, what? Who's this guy? And then it sinks in that you've got to fight 2 very different bosses with completely different movesets at the same time. Laurel and Hardy represent the halfway point of the game and are a test and a twist on everything you've learned up until now. Getting to grips with 2 different movesets is tough enough, but the twists keep coming. Upon getting to grips with the fight, a player can take comfort in the idea that beating one will make the fight much easier. Nope, it turns the other one into a supercharged version, juxtaposing the player's expectations once again. It's in moments like these that the influence of the designer on the player becomes most evident. In Divinity Original Sin 2, there's this big sarcophagus at the end of a big room-spanning puzzle that may as well have a "fat loot here" sign. However, when you go to open it, you summon a boss, who's now got you surrounded, in a choke point, and is on the high ground. This fight is super easy once you can actually reach the boss. The challenge comes from the fact that you're all but guaranteed to be in a terrible fighting position when you activate it. The game has used your instincts against you and shows that it's still got a few more cards left to play, and you can't get complacent quite yet. Surprise surprise, Furi functions in the exact same way. This guy, the Edge, is all about sword fighting. To start off with, he uses the same attacks you've seen before, this circular AoE, a couple of sword flurries, easy stuff. Then he jumps over here, pulls out a paddle, and the final 2 phases are done in 2D, which is just, it threw me for a loop. By shaking things up and surprising the player, Furi revitalised its momentum right when I thought it was starting to run out of steam. To summarise, let's look at one more boss from Furi, the Strap, who is the second and probably best boss in the game, and see how this all stacks up. First, the structure. She's got a varied moveset, but it's got an overall theme of teaching you the specifics of dodging. She's got these big lasers, these ranged blasts, and a few combos to keep you on your toes. This is a great challenge to teach you how Furi works once you're out of the tutorial. Check. Second, the threat. The game does a great job of hyping her up with this big long monologue from your rabbit buddy. Her arena come prison is this dark, technological nightmarescape. She's painted as insane and enraged, in stark contrast to the bosses before and after her, and her genuinely unsettling noises and animation really sell the Strap as being a truly dangerous opponent, which is reflected in her difficulty. She's a big step up from the Chain, who's the first boss. All that makes you feel even more dangerous when you manage to take her down. Check. Third, theme. As I mentioned before, the Strap is really unsettling, but even then the Furi team managed to telegraph her attacks really well. The biggest example is this big spotlight thing she's got on her face. It's a focal point for a lot of her attacks, and the colour it glows is a great way of telling the player what attack she's going to use. Blue for a big laser, orange for destructible bullets, and purple for a homing scattershot. Finally, a twist, and this is where Little Miss Wheelie Laserface really comes into her own. As she gets more and more pissed off, she destroys more and more of her bindings, shaking up her attack patterns until she eventually transitions into crawling around like the girl from The Ring. It's a great introduction to the concept of an evolving boss fight, and the amazingly weird transitions between forms really keep you guessing. Checkaroo. Furi is a game with honestly, quite a few problems. The real final boss is mostly just a test of endurance and patience more so than it is actually a test of skill. The dodge is hard to gauge and leads to you jumping into projectiles a lot of the time, and the charged up versions of your attacks they're pretty worthless. But in spite of that, it's the game's relentless focus on boss fights that makes it a game I beat in like 2 sittings. Bosses have always been at the forefront of game design for a good reason. They're a place where mechanical, aesthetic and metatextual design exist in a single place to create some of the most memorable experiences in games. And that's why Furi and its collection of weird, offbeat genius bosses stuck with me for so long.